From I Am Interchange, this is the HATCH podcast series.
It seems now more than ever that we have found ourselves on the cusp of monumental worldwide change. Whether we consider the environment, politics, infrastructure, health, economics, or inequities across a broad swath of social constructs, the consensus is clear and urgent. All is not as it should be. The United Nations, a consortium of 193 member states from around the globe, agrees. In 2015, the UN unanimously adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. These goals call for urgent action and global partnership to secure peace and prosperity for people and the planet, now and into the future. In alignment with these goals, HATCH, a curated network of innovators, artists, activists, and entrepreneurs working together to accelerate positive global change, focuses the annual Summit Impact Labs on topics related to their 4 impact pillars: equity, education, environment, and empowerment. This series will explore those on the front lines of transformational systems change, accelerating solutions for these human challenges, uniting to hatch a better world for all.
I'm Tate Chamberlin, and in this podcast, I reimagine philanthropy with HATCH Rethinking Philanthropy Lab Coordinator Ada Williams-Prince and esteemed lab guests Asiaha Butler and Kimberly Bryant. Ada Williams-Prince is the Senior Advisor for Program Strategy and Investment at Pivotal Ventures, where she works to accelerate positive social programming and evolution, particularly in the areas of adolescent mental health, empowerment, and access for women and girls of color. Former electrical engineer and current founder and CEO of Black Girls Code, a nonprofit that introduces girls of color to technology and computer science, Kimberly Bryant has grown her grassroots initiative since 2011 to reach over 30,000 young women worldwide. And Asiaha Butler, co-founder and CEO of the Resident Association of Greater Englewood, or R.A.G.E, in Chicago, works to reinvigorate the Greater Englewood neighborhood by mobilizing residents and resources to force a change in the community. Through the voices and experiences of these commanding women of color, this podcast provides a glimpse of the struggle, the passion, and the power behind change and its makers. Welcome, everybody, to the I Am Interchange podcast. We are in Paradise Valley, Montana at HATCH. There are 7 projects happening here that are going through accelerator systems change labs, and one of them is how to reinvent philanthropy. And the labs just ended. We just saw the presentations. We've got Asiaha Butler, we've got Ada Williams-Prince, and we've got Kimberly Bryant. Welcome to the show.
Thank you
for having us.
So happy you're here.
Happy to be here.
It's late and it's cold. What almost kept you from being here tonight with me?
Late and cold.
Late and cold.
I came earlier and no one was here, and I was kind of freaked out, and then so I almost didn't come back.
Oh, okay. The sketchy vibes from the red light.
Yeah, it was like so sketchy. The red light, and yeah. Then it was like a fox at the door.
Oh, I heard that, yeah.
You mean like a real fox?
Yeah, like a real fox.
But was it the
no.
big fox that we heard about earlier? You know, that fox that was like
All I know
the
was
biggest
that
fox ever?
it was a fox at the door. I don't know how big it was, but I almost
no.
didn't return.
How about you, Kimberly?
Sleep. I went to bed right after, I went and got in the hot tub, then I ate dinner, and I went to take a nap, and I was like almost not waking up in time to come back over here. So I almost slept through this, but
I'm glad you didn't.
I'm glad I didn't.
Let's just go around. I want to get acquainted, and our audience acquainted with maybe your favorite project that you're working on that brought you to the HATCH experience.
Go ahead, Asiaha.
It's not necessarily what brought me here, but definitely what I've been talking to people about, what we've been working on. I'm in Englewood, Chicago. Unfortunately, we're known for a lot of negative press, a lot of issues around violence and health disparities and things of that nature. So right now we birthed a new project in the spring called the Re-Up, which is the R.A.G.E Economic Upliftment Project that's really taking a look at building a local economy, supporting Black-owned businesses, and possibly creating a Black-owned business district. So I'm really excited about that, and I've been having really good conversations with folks here about that project.
I love that. I love the Black-owned business district.
I did not have a specific project that I came to Hatch with it either. I came to Hatch more so for an opportunity to get a little bit of free time to think and ideate on, or maybe explore what may be next for me. You know, our organization, Black Girls Code, this is our 10th year. And we have gone through a lot of transition and transformation over the last 2 years, but really started on this path of this 3-year strategic plan that sets us up for the future of what's next for the organization and how we grow and expand from there by really creating a solid infrastructure, processes and such to really measure our impact in a real, and I would say relative way to how we do the work. And so for me, it's about using this time just to explore how do I, move forward and leave a legacy within the organization that sustains, but also then use some of those same skills to do other things that help the world be a little bit better.
10 years is a long time in a project.
Very long time. Yeah.
So you're here kind of reflecting on that and
Yes.
using the space as a catalyst towards a direction that's still just like a feeling.
Yes, I spent a lot of time when I've been here over the last 4 days just talking to folks about like things that are interesting to me and that I'm passionate about, and also just asking like the question that we explored in one of the last sessions, like what if? And I think for me, that's been a gift to even have an opportunity to talk to other leaders and change agents in that way and just toss ideas off of them that might help me.
Yeah.
So I'm here because of them. I'm here because of them, because I believe in the power that women of color, particularly Black women and girls, have to change the world. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I fund women and girls of color, explicitly their organizations. And the idea is to get at a specific definition of power and influence. So how do we build and retain the power and influence of women and girls of color? And part of that starts with investment and trust. And I mean, that trust and investment goes together, right? So the idea that you invest in and trust women of color and girls means that you invest in them, and you give them funding to do what their genius is, and you don't give them a specific package of things that you want them to do, which is what a lot of philanthropy does. You say, I see you, I see your genius, I trust you, and here's the money.
As opposed to like adding, here's the money, but you need to follow up with this huge like 5-page checklist of.
It's even more than that. Most philanthropy actually does their design with large consulting firms. And when they do that, they have no idea what the actual issues are, what the actual solutions are. And then when they put that out in the universe, they invest in all of that. They don't invest in us.
Your lab this week was Rethinking Philanthropy. How do you describe philanthropy now?
Philanthropy as a definition has always been love. And so I don't change that definition. I think we're trying to imagine a world where you're flipping the script on what has been. And so the dream is a world of freedom and liberation for women and girls of color. And that means that you involve them in the design of whatever investment you're trying to make.
And fund their mission and intention as opposed to
Program.
Or deciding what it is before you meet them. Aisha and Kimberly can both talk about like what that experience is like to not be trusted, to not be funded, because we're raising money, watching other organizations that are white-led, that do work in communities of color. They get the money, right? So it's about intergenerational wealth building. It's about building a future for all of us.
Kimberly and Aisha, you both are they both nonprofits?
Yep.
Yes.
And Ada is saying that there are white projects also in your communities that are getting funded over a project like yours, and that has been kind of the traditional history of it.
Well, yeah, I would say for Black Girls Code, like we have over the last 10 years seen many different programs, focused on training kids or children of all genders about coding and such. And I think one of the things that's been interesting is that some of those organizations that don't center Black girls are certainly some of the best funded, as opposed to organizations that really target marginalized groups. But then, as Ada was saying, that even in our field, some of those organizations that do similar work in the community but are not led by BIPOC leaders necessarily, or certainly not led by Black women, also get more funding than work that we're doing in the community, led by a staff that's really proximate to the community and students that we serve. And so I think there's been lots of data that shows some of those inequities and how they play out in philanthropic work that organizations do. And I think that's part of what kind of shifting this narrative of philanthropy is about, is reimagining how we can uplift, fund, support those organizations that are most proximate to the communities in which they are serving.
Yeah, that happens in our community quite a bit. We have a lot of missionaries white missionaries who come to Englewood and purchase property, purchase land, have nonprofits. It's one that I'm thinking about. For example, like I've been in my community, I bought my home in 2002, and I bought the building across the street in 2005. Then I started a program where it allowed homeowners to buy land for $1. No news stories. White woman purchases a house for $1, fixes it up. She's CNN of the year, change maker. Go from a $50,000 nonprofit to like millions of dollars. R.A.G.E is still progressing. We didn't even want a 501c3 because we didn't trust funders. So we were like, oh yeah, no, we'll just rather use a physical sponsor and we don't want them in our business. We don't trust them because we saw so many white women or white-led groups not only get the notoriety, they get the funding, they get the resources. And it's ironic now because this organization is actually folding because it's been so much turmoil on the blocks in which she planted herself on that they're now trying to merge and get people to merge. And now people are paying attention in 2020. Wait, it's actually Black people who were doing work in Englewood all this time that we didn't pay attention to. We saw an influx of funding in 2020, a lot of pledges. Not sure what that's going to look like for 2021, but I hope that it changed the way many foundations were giving in our community before. If nothing else, if it goes to R.A.G.E or not, at least they're thinking twice about the leadership, the staffing of organizations who are saying their service in my community. So I've seen it right in front of me.
And I think the point here is you have two brilliant geniuses that build from community first, right? Mm-hmm. And because philanthropy is so far removed from what they believe, where they believe the impact is, there's a disconnect. And I think the lab that we had around reimagining philanthropy is really, we started at a certain place where we're like, maybe we can change it in this way, maybe we can do this. And you end in a place that's like, wait a minute, what are we even doing? What are we even doing? If this is so broken, why are we using it? I think the other thing that the lab, helps us see is philanthropy does what it's designed to do. It's a system now. It's always been a system. And it's a system that's connected to wealth in a way. And when you have wealth that was built off stolen goods, stolen people, and stolen land, it means that it will always be tainted. The legacy of white supremacy, colonialism, racism, that legacy, that's the impact, right? So the impact is being felt today. And so when we look at that impact, it means that you have brilliant, genius folks out there doing this work with their communities that are not being funded. So there's an invisibility that philanthropy doesn't often see. And the reimagining part, I think, is really just, it's more than our imagination. It's really building a world centering those who have never been centered before. So when you look at the world was created by white men. The research is done on white folks. So anything that anybody does outside of that is considered different or abnormal, or nothing is really served us. So that's really what that lab is about, is how do we flip the script? There's a great photo, and I can send it to you, but I always think of it because it really shakes me up, because I'm a product of this as well. There is a photo of a bunch of white women in a nail salon, and they are giving pedicures to Chinese women, Asian women. And when you first look at that photo, you think there's nothing wrong with it. You're like, oh yeah. But then you look and you're like, wait a minute, something is not right. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, something is right.
And seeing that juxtaposition in what is like the status quo in white culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from Asia and Kimberly on what their liberation dream is.
Me too.
I think for me, when I think of this concept of a liberation dream, it's like finding space to be free for Black women and girls, right? And be seen. So we talk a lot about that and what that means. And I think that we carry so much, and we really don't have the freedom to, just be. So whatever it is that our passions and talents and are, and to be seen for those things, we have to kind of shape shift. I don't know who said it this week, but I know somebody said,
Yeah, I remember that comment.
yeah, and I was like, yeah. And I think just this freedom, the concept of freedom for me is not having to shape shift, right? To just come into whatever it is that you're trying to do, wherever you're trying to go, and your fullest being, and that be okay, and be without judgment. And I think for me, this work with Black women and girls that I've been doing is about teaching the young ones, if you will, how to find that freedom. Because, it's something that my mother, her mother, her mother's mother, her mother's mother's mother, haven't ever had a chance to achieve. So that's what it means to me.
Yeah, in a way, I do feel like I'm living my liberation freedom. I really am, because I was in a corporate world with predominantly white women who serviced predominantly white men, and the biases, the comments, the lack of trust, lack of confidence that space did. I mean, I was growing, volunteering for R.A.G.E. I mean, it was always volunteer work. And so I was doing this work, and I'm growing in this community, and people are, I'm in the paper, I'm on the news, and I come to work, and people are like, what are you doing again? Like, what is this thing you doing in your little community? Girl, hey girl, and I always like, I'm 30, like, why are you calling me girl, So like to be able, when I was able to jump out on faith, and even with like this 401k and security, and I was like, I'm just gonna jump out here and just do it. That was just so much freedom. Yeah. And I'm able to, like, my daughter sees that. She's able to like, wow, my mom like created her own like job and doing what she loves and has built this. And so I think like if it was just more of that around me, would be like the ultimate utopia. Like everybody is living their best self, doing what they really love without critiques or trying to live up to, you're just always like, you can't be too expressive because then you're angry. And then if you're quiet, that means you're not paying attention and taking initiative. So it's like, you're always just like in this space of like, how do I fit in this space? And so just being able to just be, like you were saying, Kimberly, and being able to create that yourself is extremely liberating. And then people recognize it and wanting to be a part of it and acknowledging it.
What I love about what you both said is the fact that we design our own liberation. And the reason we have to design our own liberation is because we didn't have that before. But, our liberation is tied to each other, right? So I think the environment that you described is one where, even within the liberation dream that you described, first of all, you look 30, so that threw me off. But second of all,
thank you.
I do think
today I look tired today.
What I love about what you both said, I mean, I know you both have daughters, and I think I really love to hear, what your daughters think of you. I have an 8-year-old, and my 8-year-old when I ask her, for a long time I'd ask her, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? She'd say a doctor. I'd be like, oh my God, yes, I did it. And then she said, but then she would also say, like, I'm going to be like mommy. And I was like, oh, cool. What do you think I do? And she was like, go to meetings and eat lunch.
So cute.
So I want to hear, your daughters are older and starting in the world. I'd love to hear what your daughters would say about you now, and what do you think they're thinking about their own liberation?
My daughter is very vocal, so she's born on my birthday. So we share the same birthday. She was texting me now, so I'm talking about birthday plans already. But she watched me. She used to go to my job with me, and then she used to go to all the meetings with me when I was first starting R.A.G.E, and she didn't get it. She absolutely didn't get, like, what is my mom doing? Why is she out every night and these people and talking and facilitating these meetings and organizing? And she didn't get it, I think, until she started going to high school in the community. And when everybody in high school, the people didn't live in the community and would talk so horrible about it. And she would say, but no, it's other people doing good stuff. My mom has R.A.G.E. Have you? And then she started being this advocate without me forcing it. And I think now she's like, I just want to be doing something that I love. And she does feel like she comes from a place of privilege. She has her mom and dad in the house. We're married. We're homeowners. So she's like, how do I utilize my privilege growing up in the same environment as others, and then showing them that your path doesn't have to be one way? And so I think when she sees me, she's like, I can't believe, like, my mom took the time to try to do something in this community. Started her own organization, created her own, like, role, stepped out on faith. And so right now she's doing a teacher residency. She wants to teach back in the community on her own accord. But then she came home after the kids, after teaching, and said, I think I need to be a CEO like you, Mom, because your time is more flexible. Yeah. She was like, so people get up every day at the same time and work for someone else? And I was like, yeah, they do. That's like the majority of Americans. She's like, I kind of like what you do, like you do yours. So I think she sees, whatever it is, she wants to probably be her own boss.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what field it's going to be in. And right now, she's been wanting to teach, and she's been, like, working with small kids since she was, like, a teenager. So I do think she has a passion for it, but I got a feeling she's going to own the school.
Right. That sounds about right for her.
Yeah, she's going to probably be this. It's going to be her own school.
Aisha, I think that's exactly appropriate for a daughter of yours.
I know, I love it. I love it.
What about you, Kimberly?
Well, for me, like, Black Girls Code was really founded to, support this dream that my daughter had about being a computer scientist, a computer coder. So she's kind of grown up alongside the dream of BGC as the bodily manifestation of the dream of BGC, if you will. Wow. And so I think her liberation story is just being able to reap some of the benefits of the work that I've done, to create pathways in this field that she's, going to be entering soon. But I love what Aisha was saying about her daughter watching her, because I was thinking, I was like, yeah, because we've had this, saying that we say in BGC sometimes that the best lessons are sometimes caught and not taught, right? And so that modeling that we do as moms who have created these movements, they're watching when we're not even thinking that they're watching, and it rewires something in their psyche. And I'm not even joking about that. It does, right? Yeah. Because they then can imagine that something that the world is telling them that they cannot do or they cannot be. But then they know that, like, that's a false narrative, because, like, my mama, Miss Aisha over here, is working in the community, or my mama, Ada, is doing this for Black women, or my mama, Kimberly Bryant, is doing X. And I think that is the counterbalance, right, to what they see in society. And I think even if they're not, like, intentionally being taught these things, they are catching that as a model for themselves. And so I think for me, it's like I have no idea what my daughter's liberation is going to look like. I just know that she knows that she can have it, right? That's all I can wish for. Now she knows that she can get it. I'm ready. I hope I'm here to see it manifest.
Yeah.
I hope you do too.
Yeah, thank you.
Love that. Yeah, I love just like basic leading by example in the world that you want to live in, and daughters just seeing that and sponging it up and being inspired to see that opportunity for them.
It's an interesting way to think about what it means to reimagine philanthropy too, because, the way that we're thinking about it is how then do we, the liberation part is, even though you have this society that's always telling you no, that you can't do something, we have models out there of women of color leaders who are showing a different way. And we had those before, but every generation it changes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I think my urgency around this is that I don't want to wait another generation. And so the transformation of philanthropy is got to happen now. Yeah. And so I think also, when I think about women and girls of color and their power and influence, I'm also thinking about their ability. It's really ultimately the ability for women and girls of color to make decisions, to shape perspectives, and to build wealth in ways that we haven't had access to. So I think philanthropy as a sector isn't the only sector that could be transformed, but there's certainly a modeling, as you say, what's lessons that are caught and not taught. When funders invest in women of color and their leadership, that's the lesson that's caught and not taught. Because I can talk all day about what should be funded and how it should be funded, but when they see somebody like Mackenzie Scott, just here's the money, I trust you all, right? That's really what causes the change.
Just to add to that, I had the blessing of having that happen with a funder who I was sharing with you, had watched my work from afar, didn't know they were watching the work, had their staff join our association, and then next thing you know, they tell us, we're going to grant you guys $500,000 over the next 3 years, the largest grant that R.A.G.E has gotten. And it was really this trust in what we were doing. Now, and I mean, she's the reason I'm here. She's like, you need to be in these spaces and, talk about it. So I feel like we've created a model. She's already said, we're going to have to go take our show on the road to show people that this can happen. We do quarterly reports, we talk, but it's definitely a very different model from what I'm used to.
Yeah.
I guess I had a question for Ada from being on the philanthropic side, because on this notion around trust and philanthropy, because we were one of the beneficiaries of Mackenzie Bezos Scott's donations. And just like Aisha said, like, the gift was transformative. Like, it was a big gift. And it was the biggest gift we ever gotten, just like you said.
Wow.
And, like, yes, they did due diligence. We had to do dissertation or anything due diligence. We just had to, do some basic due diligence. And they called up and said, hey, we're going to give you this money. There's no strings attached. You don't have to do a report, or maybe just a little short paragraph or something. Like, it's like, I mean, the impact of that is I don't even think just, what people have read about that really even fully describes the impact to, these organizational leaders who we usually have to jump through all kinds of hurdles.
Right.
And so I wonder, from your perspective, why are more philanthropists not doing that as opposed to doing, these more traditional methods of giving away money?
Traditional money. Right. So part of the reason that doesn't happen that often, when Mackenzie Scott started doing that, it opened up a new world for how to do it, right? Like, okay, maybe we can. But we're locked into a system that we didn't create. And because we didn't create it, there's no trust. And so because of that, it requires a large application process, years of being in relationship. And then you have to prove, because you don't have to prove anything. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. She showed trust. Why it doesn't happen is because the system isn't designed to trust. The system is designed to make philanthropists feel good and have quote unquote impact in the world, something to show for their money.
For their tax breaks.
Right, for their money. Because otherwise, why do we even have it? Why aren't we using the African diaspora and the trillions of dollars in remittances as the model of generosity? It's the people with wealth, the most wealth, who control it and then dole it out in little pieces because there's no trust. And as people of color and as Indigenous people, as Black people, our communities have lived off of trust. That's how we naturally operate. And when you don't naturally operate that way, there's no way you know how to trust. I mean, within philanthropy, you have to push them to understand what trust is. But I don't have time to wait for all this to happen. So I feel there's certain urgency to transform it now.
You're talking a lot about urgency, and there's a lot of urgency around the Sustainable Development Goals to achieve by 2030. Would you be in favor of the slow pace of democracy, or would you rather see a dictator for a day?
I vote democracy.
Democracy moves fast enough?
No.
Not in its current system.
Yeah,
if democracy was in its purest form, then yes.
Yeah,
because democracy does move.
Yeah.
It's just who trips it up, right?
Okay.
It's who slows it down.
That's
and what
true.
slows it down is the legacy of colonialism, white supremacy, patriarchy.
Right. So you're all pro-democracy, no dictator?
Well, I will have to say, I agree with Ada. I don't think it's democracy or authoritarianism. I feel like the thing that we need has elements of democracy, but we need a new word because we need a new model that pulls the best out of that and creates the things that gets us to ascension. That's our word.
That's right. Ascension. Ascension.
Right. So I think democracy is not the thing, but there are elements of it that I think could be beneficial.
Cool. Legislative change or social change?
You're asking either or?
Does one outweigh the other?
Well, I think what we've learned from this particular system that we're in is there is no either or. There's only the gray space in between, because that's where those things come together. The either or debate is there's room for all of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And
Okay,
I
room
think,
for all of it.
Yeah, there's room for all of
it's
it.
both. I would say both. The one not favoring the other.
So with all these sustainable development goals to achieve by 2030, there's thousands of little projects within each of them and all these different influences like ideas and religions and cultures coming in to influence how these are solved. Whose reality will be the future?
I think when you describe the Sustainable Development Goals, I mean, one of the reasons why they're goals is because it's about how people come together and the collaboration that happens when you're willing to work together towards a better future. And I also think that, when I say our liberation is tied to each other, I don't just mean in this country. I mean globally. It is actually women and girls around the world who carry the world. There are matriarchal societies that we can point to that have everything: democracy, wealth, intergenerational understanding. I mean, I just want to mention that the Sustainable Development Goals are goals, but it takes, honestly, the focus and the centering of women and girls around the world that actually will be the reason for the actual change. But that's just my view. So
The future is female.
Yeah, it is. And so I'll just...
Absolutely. I got that shirt.
What brings you hope?
the two women across.
Yeah.
For me, the
Aisha
young
and Kimberly.
Yeah.
For me, it's
And
the
you
young
can't-
people. The young
Yeah.
people, hands down. The young people, this generation they really truly inspire me because they're very different. They're their own unique, powerful selves. And I'm like, this generation has something special.
For me, it's just Black people in general. I just think about everything that we go through and each reiteration of trying to be liberated. And we get to a certain point, and then a new system is developed to knock it down, and then we keep going, something else comes. And so just Black people give me hope because I'm just I just don't know if another group of people could endure what America has been for us. And then we're still smiling and laughing and dancing and creating and having conversations like this. So, I'm hopeful.
Truth is that if we take all the evidence and data out there and what you said, Aisha, about that, women of color, particularly Black women and Black girls, they are superheroes walking on earth, despite what has happened. Despite. And so I think recognizing the power we have, if we really knew that power, it's scary.
It is.
Because we are powerful. And so this is why I think I should plug now that we should start talking about women and girls of color as superheroes.
Yeah, I love
like
it.
I like that.
I love it. I'm with it.
Yeah. You want to talk to who's talking to Marvel?
Right.
Would that be you?
I always
You're
refer
powerful.
to us as superheroes, and like people are just superheroes and with different type of skills.
I'm Tate Chamberlin. This is the I Am Interchange podcast, and we are up at HATCH, the HATCH Experience in Paradise Valley, Montana, and we've got, this is just such an intimidating group right now. Like, Asiaha Butler, Ada Williams-Prince, and Kimberly Bryant. Wow. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That was really wonderful.
It
Thanks
was.
for giving us that opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm
And
so
we got
glad.
to end on Wakanda Forever, which was my dream.
It just happened naturally.
I know, totally naturally.
How do we build a better future? Philanthropy might always seem a boon, an unequivocal positive in a world full of more than its share of the contrary. But what if it comes with strings, controls, deliverables, constraints? As Prince points out, most philanthropists are currently tied to consulting firms and corporate entities so far removed from the actual ventures they fund that the entire process becomes faceless and fails to isolate those projects and people most deserving of support. We need to fund mission and intention as opposed to programs, says Prince. And that requires trust. Trust in the grassroots organizations working in these communities to know, see, and evaluate judiciously. Trust in the youth to decipher, imagine, and create unapologetically. And trust in the marginalized and disenfranchised to engage, challenge, and assert compassionately. It's about building from within the community first, and trusting those that know the terrain to tread it wisely. That's part of what shifting this narrative about philanthropy is about. Reimagining how we can uplift, fund, support those organizations that are most proximate to the community in which they are serving. From there, community change becomes regional. Regional movements envelop countries, and countries share within a global classroom. And then these transformative gifts, not just of funding, but of that trust, stretch scope and breadth worldwide. Ascension becomes reality, and liberation is felt by all. While the future may not all be female, as these incredible women assert, it's most assuredly in the capable hands of superheroes like them who are committed to doing the work in those gray spaces between. A shout out to our media and production team: Jessica Byerly, Allison Gregory, Kevin Hilton, Roy Chapman, Eli Kisko, Raymond Onsatagi, Sean Mackinson, Robert Edwards, and Mark Groner. A special thanks to Yarrow Craner, Jared Silverman, Pete Strom, Josie Caton, Eitan Shapira, Cassidy Seckman, Bryant Stersala, Rachel Hicks, Katie Yam, and Lou Morris. A special thank you to HATCH supporters, Steelcase, the Kauffman Foundation, the Gideon Fund, Envision Equality, the HATCH Volunteers, Board of Directors, HATCH Guardians, and the community who help make this work and mission possible. To learn more about HATCH, visit thehatchexperience.org. Building community could not happen without food. And with that, I'd like to thank Whistle Pig Korean, Red Tractor Pizza, and Zocalo Coffee House. Do you have an issue that's riddled by gridlock in your community? Shoot me an email at tate@iaminterchange.org. That's tate@iaminterchange.org. Remember, share airtime and don't ruin dinner.